So hello everyone, my name is Jay Croft. I'm with Prime Fit Content and a happy supporter of Functional Aging Institute, and I'm glad to introduce Martin today. Martin's going to talk about how hiking can be so important to aging well. And as you can see, he really knows what he's talking about. He's an avid hiker himself. So he's going to share with us why walking up hills helps us age younger, keeps our brains and bodies healthier, and why we should add training for the outdoors to any fitness program. Not only does he know about the outdoors, but Martin has a vast background in fitness. He's the former chief marketing officer at Bally and Crunch, a strategic advisor to 24-Hour Fitness, and an entrepreneur and the founder of Activate. So with that, Mr. Martin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jay. Give me a second to just find a way to share the screen and we'll get going.
It's down on the bottom.
Yep.
In the middle of those options.
Yep, I got to start the PowerPoint though. Give me one sec. Okay. You guys can see my screen?
Yeah, perfect.
Beautiful. Okay. So hi everyone. It is wonderful to be back at another Functional Aging Summit. This is like my 6th time. I was at the first one, and it's hard to believe how amazing it's grown. And as you can see from the little stunt I'm pulling, we were supposed to be in Denver. I was going to take a group of you hiking before it started and tomorrow. And I just can't get it out of my head that we're not in Denver hiking. I got my pack ready to go. But enough with that stunt, it's kind of getting in the way, so I'll just do it regular. So again, welcome. The summit for me is an important annual event. First of all, because Cody and Dan are so much at the leading edge of what's going on in the fitness category. Also though, just for me, the word summit is just such a magnetic word because I've been a climber for a really long time. And my own personal motto is always seeking another summit. So to be at another Functional Aging Summit, just kind of a cool thing to be. Little background story. We're going to get into how this book came to be, which is actually, if we were in Denver, and I sure wish we were, you'd all be getting a copy of this book in your goodie bag. And we timed it to introduce it this week. And it was conceived last year in Albuquerque. As most of you know, Nicole Gebhardt, she convinced me there was a book in this. And now a year later, here's the book, but no Denver. So we're gonna figure out a way to get you guys some very steep discounts. I can't physically get you a hard copy right now, but by the end of this, I'll show you how you can get this in the pre-launch. So, and I'll give you email addresses and stuff. I'd love to have your contact info so I can let you know when the pre-launch starts. But that aside, and I know it seems like everybody talking at this conference has a book, so, I got a book. But if you were on my workshop about a month ago, I want to tell you this is a little bit different. This is geared towards trainers and how it fits into a trainer's existence. And it's not just about getting outside and hiking. It's how it fits into your business and the future of our business. Oh, is that not going to work? Yeah, okay, hold on. I think I have to forward this a different way. Hold on. Okay, got it. All right, so the story here is this. 1990, I'm hiking up Mount Washington in New Hampshire. I'm a cocky 34-year-old mountaineer training for a big climb somewhere in the world. And I'm coming down at this exact spot. And I'm tired, I'm wearing a heavy pack, and I see off in the distance a runner. There was no such thing as trail running back then, but it was a guy running. And I went, man, that guy's like unbelievably fit. What is going on there? And as I get closer to him, I see he's not exactly young. And he comes right up to me. And I can see he's like my grandfather's age. And I'm just dumbfounded. And I look at him and I said, how are you doing this? And he says to me, I live right across the street. I've been running up this hill twice a week since I was a little kid. It's the fountain of youth. "See ya, Sonny." And he goes tearing up past me. And I just looking over my shoulder, watching this 75-year-old guy running up a big mountain. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It actually was a life-changing moment. It stayed with me so long. And it really is the source of kind of why I'm in the fitness business and kind of why I've written this book. It was so life-changing. I can't even begin to tell you. So that set me off on a trail. As Jay said, I've been in the fitness business working for big companies. And now I'm an entrepreneur in the fitness business. I want to tell all of you who are probably entrepreneurs, it's harder to be an entrepreneur, much harder. What you guys are doing, it requires a great deal of persistence and energy, and you get that through fitness. But I'll tell you, being a fitness entrepreneur is much harder than being a corporate entrepreneur at a big billion-dollar company. It is much harder. But one of the benefits of having spent some time there is I got a lot of research in my head. I did about $1 million in consumer research, and it's all in here. And then I've experienced it myself through being on 7 continents, over 50 years of hiking and climbing. I like to say I've done 100 million uphill steps. And I believe I can justify that. It's pretty true. So I've been around the world working for fitness companies, but also not for fitness companies. And it was kind of an interesting experience. Most of them were global companies. And I used to, like, for instance, go to Scotland about 3 times a year. So it made it very easy for me to hike the Scottish Highlands when I was there. So I was really lucky to be in a position like that where I could get around and then add to a business trip, 3 days, 4 days of hiking somewhere, which is what I did for decades. So I'm really lucky to do that. But here's the benefit. I can save you a lot of air miles and a lot of steps by sharing what I know, both in the book and right now. I'll save you some having to go through that 50-year process to learn some of what I'm going to tell you right now. So I hope that's a good thing for you. So what we're going to cover is this. Why get outside? Can't I just go to a gym? The answer is yes, you can. I'll get to that. The science behind all this, the lessons learned, and a few training tips. I kind of feel funny giving trainers training tips, but maybe there's a few in here that you haven't heard of. Okay. Also, for the book, in order to validate what I was learning, I interviewed over 100 people who were hikers and also over 50. Most of them over 60, many even older. And I kept hearing consistent stories. I knew I was going to hear it because this is the way I think about it. Hiking keeps me young. Hiking healed me. The healing properties of being outdoors are phenomenal. Hiking changed my life. You hear that a lot. And I'll testify to it. It did for me. I've never felt better. And that is true too. I went through a period kind of in my mid-50s where I fell off the wagon, so to speak. I was traveling too much for business. I put on 40 pounds and, expense account dining and not moving. And then somewhere in my early 50s, I started to figure out this is not me. I didn't want to be this way. So I went through this just like most of these people I talked to. So it's really meaningful to me to hear it from other people and see how many people did this as well. Stunning. And throughout the book, I've got about 30 interviews with people who went through various processes. Fascinating stuff. So let's talk about hiking in general for a moment. It's actually the 4th most popular outdoor activity. I was surprised to learn that when I researched it, but it also explains why the trails are kind of crowded. 45 million people hit the trails in 2017. I know it's up since then, and that's significantly up from just a few years ago. And you know, what I just said about the trails being crowded, it's only the real popular trails. I found that, one notch down from the most popular hikes, empty. You have it to yourself. So I'm a solo hiker. I like to be alone. I go out in the woods and in the mountains to kind of a meditation process as well as a fitness process. So I don't really go for the crowded trails. They're not all crowded. Some of them are. So let's see if I got all this down here. Yeah. So as you guys know, you cannot go to a fitness conference or a meeting or a Zoom thing and not talk about the pandemic we've just been through. So I'll take 2 slides to remind you guys that we've known for a very long time that fitness, being outdoors in the sunlight, is not only preventive healthcare, but it inhibits, it boosts your immune system. It converts cholesterol to vitamin D. There's a million benefits to being outside, especially now. And I believe if you listen carefully, you don't even have to listen carefully, people are chomping at the bit to get outside more now. As you know, we've all been locked up for 3 months. I think the health benefit, the claustrophobia we're all feeling, plus the health benefits people are starting to realize, are a perfect time to add this to your repertoire and figure out how to connect it to your clients. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But you really need to think about outdoor fitness as the world's best preventive medicine. The term I use is upstream preventive healthcare. And emphasis on the word upstream. This process happens so far before you get to what's traditionally thought of as preventive medicine, which often is a pill, and it's not really preventive, it's just postponing or slowing or maintaining. Prevention is when, upstream prevention, is when you prevent something from happening. If you are fit and you're lean, you won't have to have a pill for everything. You won't have high blood pressure. You won't have metabolic syndrome from inactivity and obesity. That's true prevention to me. And that's what fitness does in general, but in particular, upstream preventive healthcare. This does it better. So back to the hiking is fountain of youth concept. And it's an exaggeration to make a point a little bit, but I believe it's the truth as well. These are some of the people I met. And I got to tell you, again, I have lots of these stories. The gentleman on the left, Alan Hewitt from Maine, 81 years old. He's had 2 replacement knees, 2 replacement hips, and 2 bypass surgeries. And he has cured himself from further cardiovascular problems through hiking. He sends me a picture of his hikes every week through Facebook. The guy, his last hike was 17,000 steps, 77 floors, and he's 81. So he turned his life around through this. The lady in the center, actually a neighbor of mine, Susan Williams, she started hiking at age 60. She started just by walking in the local reservoir on a flat path. She's worked her way up at age 73 to hiking tall mountains in New Hampshire. Shocking. The lady on the extreme right, Susan Mitchell, 75, she started a 10,000 person hiking group after she recovered from a mastectomy and other knee and hip problems. She's used hiking to cure herself. And I've got tons of these. It's a remarkable thing. And here's what it really comes down to. I'm sure many of you have seen the picture on the left. That's the cross section of the upper thigh of a 40-year-old triathlete. It's got a strong bone, dense muscle, dense big muscle, minimal body fat. One notch down, a 74-year-old sedentary person who's, you can see the bone is thin, the muscle is shriveled, and there's body fat. Compare that to the bottom, a 74-year-old triathlete. Looks just like the 40-year-old triathlete. And that's because of this magical thing called angiogenesis. And the muscle effect to the side, when you create that high intensity workout and stress those muscles, it grows new capillaries. Those new capillaries distribute nutrients, blood, and oxygen to wherever they grow. The more they grow, the healthier you are. So my friend Alan, he told me that his doctor said he's had so much angiogenesis around his heart, he doesn't need to do the deep dive checkup every year. They're convinced he has overcome his heart problems through hiking. I find it amazing. So I'm sure you've all seen a chart, something like this too. The darker line is athletic performance. The gray line is typical. And we peak about 35 and we start to really go into a decline. Weirdly, when I first saw this chart, I did a double take because I'm at the X. I'm 64 and I was, as I said, in my mid 50s, I was going down that slide. I now feel really certain that I've gone through that improvement process and have reversed the aging process big time. And the gap between those two lines is really what we're after in the fitness business, because the gap is a massive increase in quality of life, and it's a massive decrease in healthcare costs as well, but it's a massive increase in what we call health span. And health span is a great deal of interest to me because with longevity, yeah, sure, we're living longer, but the question is, are we living better? I mean, the miracle of modern medicine can keep a very sick person alive for a long time, but their quality of life is not that good. Their health span is poor. They may be alive, but through fitness, through hiking, you can make that health span longer. And here's another one. I'm sure you've heard this term. It's strangely the same graph, but in different terms. People go on the decline, typical, down to 80 or so. With an increased health span, what tends to happen is you stay active and fit much longer, and then you have a very quick decline. And that's what we're after. It's called compressed morbidity. And that's really, as trainers, as fitness people, there's nothing better than keeping your client active as long as possible. Now, everybody gives out at some point, but isn't it better for everybody and more economical, better for the healthcare system, better for the family, better for the person to be active and fit a long time and then not spend a long time dying? To me, it's the only way to go. And I think in this chart, this is what we're trying to accomplish by training people in their 50s and above. I think it's a great way of looking at it. So let's talk a little bit about the fitness business. Some of you may have seen me display this chart before. Right now, there's an unbelievable amount of choice for consumers, clients, members, for the public. What do I do? Do I go to the gym? Do I do home fitness? Do I do an app? Do I hike? Do I bike? Too many options. And this is just some. I could have put 50 on here, but the point is there's a lot of choice. Typically what happens when there's this much choice is people do one thing that they're familiar with, or they ask an expert. They ask an expert. And that's the role of the trainer in the future. And especially now, thank you, pandemic, the online piece and the home piece is much more important. And in some ways it makes the four walls a little bit vulnerable, but I don't think it does in the long term. I think if you view being a fitness coach as way beyond counting reps, not just doing workouts, but you have to become the trusted expert to sort through all the static. You have to have a caregiver mentality, and you have to think of yourself as a fitness consultant. And if you do that, you put yourself at the center of everything that's going on. When you become that trusted expert who can customize a program for a client and customize a program that isn't necessarily inside your four walls, you become as important to that person as a financial planner. And I'm not kidding. I think fitness coach can be, after all, we're talking about life and death here, right? Fitness coach can become the same kind of relationship as your broker, your investment advisor, all the things that are important to people and trusted and advisors. I think that's what we have to strive for in this business. And I'm sure it's doable. I'm sure the age 45 plus market wants that. So the obvious question is, can I just work out in a gym? Now, you know, I come from the business, I come from the industry, and this is my gym actually. I love it. It's a great gym, but it's not enough. For me, it's not enough. And now, yeah, you know, it's kind of claustrophobic, even though it's a cavernous place. It's indoors. I like being outdoors. So to me, it's a means to an end to be in the gym. But now, with all that's going on, people are looking at gyms as a little bit germy. I think the bigger gyms are going to have a little bit of an issue with that to prove that they're not germy. I think studios, less so. But people want variety. People are now thinking about how can I protect my brain? Mindfulness and stress reduction, also important. How does fitness affect my eyesight? Believe it or not, that's becoming an issue. And I think when you get outdoors, there are tremendous life lessons to be learned, and I'm going to cover some of them that go way beyond what's possible within the four walls. So let's take a look at the fitness business for a second. As I said, I've done $1 million worth of research here, and I see the problems. If you look at on the surface, really thriving. In fact, since in the last 10 years or so, 34% growth in membership. We're now at about 61 million members of fitness clubs. That's a huge number. For me though, if you have to look past that. You have to go past and ask yourself, how can we do better? Because let's face it, as the organized fitness business grew, it correlates about 98% with the obesity epidemic and the inactivity epidemic. So it doesn't necessarily work at a population level. It works for some people wonderfully, but for many, it doesn't work at all. So there needs to be options. That's what I'm focused on. Isn't this something? Most people quit within 6 months. The amount of churn in this industry is remarkable. And even the people who stay members, only 18% go to the gym consistently. So this says a couple of things to me. The gym experience is not perfect for a lot of people. It also says for a smart entrepreneur, there's going to be a lot of people always looking for more choice and better options. And I think a really great coach can attract a lot of people to their business by understanding these dynamics. A couple other statistics I want to share with you. And this is something that I identified 15 years ago. I talked about that $1 million worth of research I did. 15 years ago, it was clear as day that the aging population was going to be the market for us. 92 million people over age 45. Disenfranchised by traditional options, because look at the bar chart, you can see membership plummets at age 45. It comes back at a little bit at 60, but not a lot. And it comes back because people realize they have to do something to stave off aging. But there's a lot of people seeking solutions that are not yet there. They're compelled by the desire to reinvent aging. People above 45 don't want to age like their parents. And in my book, I go through this whole backstory about how my parents aged, which was not particularly good. And they retired too soon. And my generation doesn't want to do that, doesn't want to do it that way. We're not interested in retiring early necessarily. And we're not interested in going on that automatic retirement at age 65 to slide downhill to inactivity. So there's a lot of people out there who want to reinvent aging. And they need you to help them. They need our business to help them. So we can be a monstrous solution to this problem. Now, here's another chart I want to share with you. These are the 92 million people. That bubble, that big blue circle is the 92 million people. The small blue bubbles are the number of people in health clubs and the number of people doing at-home fitness. Now, I wish we were in a room together because I rhetorically ask, what does that tell you? Well, if only 11% of Americans age 45 to 70 are health club members, that tells me the other 89% are looking for a solution. That's something we have to consider because right now, various fitness companies are trading members back and forth, but not many are looking outside the traditional members for people who want solutions that don't exist yet. And I believe the trusted coach in the center of the circle offering multiple solutions, one of which is getting outside and hiking, is a big opportunity. So again, here's the way the population is staggered. 92 million people above age 45. These numbers are gargantuan, and you know this. Practically no one is targeting this group. They are available to us. And that's what Dan and Cody saw. That's what all of you sort of saw. But I want to tell you, this opportunity is way bigger than you think. You don't have to steal members from a big box gym. the real opportunity is to bring people in with techniques and programs and opportunity for, and to show them how important this is. The people who just would never consider walking into a gym or who are disenfranchised by it. So it's a massive opportunity. Now, I told you I interviewed 100 people. My book has a bunch of stories and pictures. These two ladies are hiking partners in New Hampshire. As you can see, we had tried the gym. So we just hiked up local Mount Monadnock, then we did a few more and we were hooked. So the numbers are speaking it. There's a lot of people who prefer other options that aren't the four walls. And I really think, and I'm going to show you how to do this, we can attract these people as coaches. So what makes hiking so special? Now we're going to get into the science. All this stuff is true. Calorie burn, weight bearing. We're going to spend more time on the high intensity piece of this because that's the part that I think is really special. And then what that does for your brain and what it does for stress reduction. The calorie burn stuff is pretty simple. It's like this. 150-pound person on a treadmill, you burn 170 calories an hour at 2 miles per hour. That's not bad, but if you give it a little incline, the calorie burn starts to go up. But if you go hiking, put on a backpack and go up a steep hill, you burn 1,000 calories or more an hour. So it's remarkable how many calories you burn. If you go for 2 hikes a week, you'll never have to worry about what you eat. It'll burn everything off. The extra pounds will pour off you and your client, obviously. Now, the aspect of hiking that is very special is what it does for balance. Now, it's complicated. It helps to train in the gym for balance. This is where it's reciprocal. I think that there's a lot of great techniques that trainers can do in the four walls to improve people's balance. But there's nothing that does it as well as actually having to balance yourself outdoors with the prospect of falling. As you know, neural pathways decay as you get older, but it's the focus that makes it special. Because your brain has to worry about every step on uneven terrain, you develop this really remarkable foot-eye coordination. You know, we hear about hand-eye coordination all the time. Foot-eye coordination, I think, is more important to your neurological health. And what's called neural pathways, and we're going to talk about that. It provides core muscle control, and if you can balance yourself on a trail, you can, your ability to resist and prevent falls goes way up. Somebody's making a lot of noise in the background. Mute, please.
Yeah, everybody needs to be on mute, please.
So, as you know, one of the things happening because of this aging population is dementia is on people's minds as much as cancer. And hey, isn't this interesting? Exercise reduces the risk of dementia later in life. There's a lot of good science here. People who exercise regularly in middle age are 2/3 less likely to get Alzheimer's in their 70s than those who did not exercise. People who begin exercising in their 70s cut their risk by half. So to me, it's never too late. You know, the fitter you are in midlife, obviously that's going to have a residual effect later on, the physical reserve that you need. But it's never too late. You can impact the cognitive decline that is possible through inactivity. So here's what it's about. Everybody knows high intensity training. Okay. But it does stuff that's really marvelous. And I think most fitness people, unless you're in Dan and Cody world, think only about the physical benefits of high intensity. And it does obviously create incredible cardiovascular strength and resistance. But you can see this is a Fitbit. This is that's my polar monitor. This is a long hike, up and down, up and down, up and down. The bursts of high intensity do something that, let's say, running a marathon doesn't do. If you run a marathon, you find that position, that level that can keep you going for a really long time, and it's not your maximum. It is usually a really good marathon runner settles into a heart rate that's pretty comfortable, and they go forever. That's great, but it doesn't do what high intensity does. Somebody's whispering.
Hey.
Thank you. So the high intensity piece makes it really different. And I want to explain something. Your heart rate, your heart is connected to your brain. A lot of people don't realize this, but what happens, the higher you get your heart, the more good things it does for your brain. The one thing you need to know is that getting your heart rate up between 60 and 75% of max creates a protein in your blood called BDNF. BDNF induces the growth of new brain cells and supports cognitive functioning. Basically, it's the building block for a lot of good things. Those good things include neurogenesis. Now, neurogenesis is the process of creating new neurons, new brain cells. That happens in most people. You may recall that in the previous generation, we were told that you're born with the maximum number of brain cells you're ever going to have, and that from there on, it just goes down and down and down. It's not true. Your body continues to build brain cells, neurogenesis. You can help that process along through high intensity training. And here's another interesting thing. There's a thing called neuroplasticity. It's the brain's ability to reorganize and rebuild itself by forming new neural pathways. These neural pathways are a little known but critically important element to the physiology of your health. I'll give you an example of what a neural pathway is. A tennis serve, it's a repetitive motion, and the more you practice it, the easier and the smoother it becomes. Well, a lot of people used to think, oh, that's muscle memory. It's not muscle memory. It's a neural pathway. Brain cells reorganize in your head, and they learn how to control complex movements when you practice them. So the more you practice, which means new cells need to be stimulated, there's a bunch of ways to do that. Like, for instance, playing the piano is also great for neuroplasticity, neural pathways. The way you coordinate your body to play the piano is very complex, but it doesn't have the high intensity piece with it. So when you have both together, it's remarkable. It creates a very resilient brain. It creates what we call cognitive reserve. And so here's something interesting. Most people look at this and they see a rough and rocky trail. I look at it and I see the best possible brain workout. And I mean that. And here's why. You may have heard a bunch of people in Dan and Cody world are talking about dual tasking. Dual tasking basically means you're using high intensity workout and a cognitive challenge at the same time. You're using your brain and your body at a very high level. Dual tasking is what creates brain health. And this is what brain health looks like. Okay, I'm sure you've seen, some of you, the difference between a healthy brain and an aging brain. Think about what we just talked about with angioplasty. Well, a similar thing happens. The more you practice, the more you work out, the more you do dual tasking, your brain grows denser neural pathways. If you look at this left to right, it starts to get denser. It starts to get more robust. That's healthier. And when you don't have dense neural pathways, you have what looks like that aging brain on the right. It's not a healthy thing, and that's actually Parkinson's person. Right? I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess that is a Parkinson's person. I'm sorry, Alzheimer's. Right, that's an Alzheimer's patient. Denser neural pathways is what you're after. That's cognitive reserve. Now, something also interesting. Why the outdoors is so important. Studies recently are showing that mice, kept in an enriched environment activated by experience, which basically means dual tasking, promotes the integration of new granule cells. What that basically means is it takes those new cells and attaches them to your brain. It builds your brain. And did you know that healthy, fit people have bigger brains? Obese people actually have smaller brains. A very obese person's brain can shrink up to 8%, whereas a fit person can build new brain cells. And those brain cells can be used to create new neural pathways and probably prevent cognitive decline. It's a really remarkable thing. And outdoors does it better because this enriched environment piece does not exist in any other way of training, to my knowledge. So that to me is one of the critical aspects here. So comes down to this. It's 2,000 steps per mile. When you do it on a treadmill, your brain goes on automatic pilot. It doesn't have to worry about whether the ground is flat. It doesn't even have to vary speed. It doesn't have to take into consideration roots, rocks, the weather. You just walk. You probably put on some music or watch television. It's okay. I'm not suggesting it's bad. It's not even close to being as good as getting outside and hiking, which is terrific for your brain. Now, here's a little known aspect to this also. You don't get this, hardly anybody trains for it. When you're outside and you're going up a hill, it's all fun. But the hardest part is downhill. And the reason for that is you're using different muscles. And you're also putting a much more intense workout on your legs to resist gravity. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on the weight-bearing aspect of this, but as you know, weight-bearing exercise is really good for your bones. So that's there. What I want to go into is the fact that it engages more muscles. When you are in a position of having to resist gravity, the intensity of the workout is 3 to 4 times harder than going uphill. You have to keep your balance. You have to focus. It's so much more intense for your brain. Hiking downhill is a phenomenal thing, and you have to train for it. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but training for it is important. Downhill is where even some of the fittest people I've seen who are marathon runners or joggers, they fall apart on the downhill because it's different muscles. And so you've got to, the process of training for that gives you a workout that you've usually never had. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit because there's a whole nother side of hiking that this is unique. First of all, it's the concept of perspective. I'm a big fan of this. My whole life, I've gravitated towards high places. I actually used to work right across the street from the Chrysler building on the 50th floor of a building. I love being up high and looking down. And I didn't know why, but I think I do now because the science says you do see the world differently. It gives you perspective. When you're outside on a wonderful vista like this, your stress drains away. You're more optimistic. And strangely enough, you worry less about your problems. You see things in a different way. And I'm sure some of you have experienced this. It is a real marvelous thing, but I'm sure one of the things you don't realize is you're actually at the same time improving your vision. Hard to believe, but here's what's happening. Don't most of us spend an inordinate amount of time looking at our phone, looking at our computer, and especially now, the last 3 months, we've barely been outside. So what happens is your eye muscles, and by the way, your eyes are controlled by a series of very small muscles to focus the lens and to move them side to side. Your eye muscles start to tighten up. They start to atrophy in some ways. Here's the analogy. You're sitting on a plane for 8 hours in the seat. You know how after you get up, you're kind of creaky, your legs are a little stiff, your back is a little stiff? The same exact thing is happening to your eye muscles when you're sitting in front of a screen all day. So if you get out and up and exercise the full range of motion in your eyes, not only is there a stress reduction factor, but your eyes actually your eyesight can get better. The muscles move smoother. We're made to be moving in the outdoors. Our body works better, our brain works better when we're moving through space. We're not meant to be sitting in a chair looking at a screen. So the fact that we are, you have to offset that with being outside and gazing afar and preferably up high. It's a remarkable thing if you haven't done it. Now, stress reduction, great. There's this whole movement for mindfulness. And I personally think if more people knew about hiking, we would be putting the mindfulness business out of business. Here's why. And as you know, if you don't know the definition of mindfulness, it's that kind of focused mental state you get into. acknowledging your feelings, body sensations. It's therapeutic. You can go through a 20 to 40 minute mindfulness session, and they're kind of expensive actually, and you feel good. It does work. But I have to tell you, I've tried them. To me, nothing works better than a 4-hour hike, because you have to focus. All those things are there. You're feeling your body, you're getting the sensations, and it's so much longer. You know, an indoor mindfulness session that lasts 20 minutes to 45 minutes compared to an outdoor hike for 4 hours, exponentially better. I can't even begin to tell you if you haven't done it. And I know that our clients will appreciate that if you can coach them to that. It's true, just 2 hours a week outside can change everything about the way your brain works, the way you feel about things. You sleep better, you're calmer, you're more positive. It's not just the outdoor nature of it. Greens and blues are really good for your brain. We don't get enough of them when we're sitting indoors. So just a little bit outdoors drastically improves everything. But here's an area that I think is important. Hiking teaches you how to overcome challenges. In the real world, you know, it's possible to take shortcuts, you can get off the treadmill. But when you're really in a hill somewhere or a mountain, you realize how small you are. But there's this thing called the A to B effect that I love. And that is, if you climb to the top of something, or you go down a trailhead a few miles, you have to come back. You cannot fake it. And strangely enough, it creates a weird dynamic. It makes you more confident. You start doing this over and over, and you realize that there's no shortcuts. You have to get down. You start to accept the fact that there is a physical reality to this that gives you the confidence and the strength to overcome challenges in the real world. You're better at work. You're better at family. You're better at all kinds of things when your brain absorbs this message from being outside. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. Now, how are we doing on time? I love this principle of comfort zone. Comfort zone is when you get outside of your comfort zone, obviously. When you're inside your comfort zone, that's where you're safe, unstressed. It's a nice place to be. So everybody sometimes retreats to their comfort zone. The problem is there's no growth there. You get complacent. And as trainers, as people who are in the fitness business, it's not our job to keep people complacent. We got to push them a little bit. And you go through this process of pushing people past their comfort zone. In my case of hiking, that means longer hikes, higher hikes, further hikes, bigger mountains. But it doesn't have to be an extreme thing. And as you push people out of their comfort zone expands. That's a good thing. And that also brings confidence to a person. They learn how to overcome fears of doing things new. What a great life lesson that is. Fear of learning things, and you can do this continuously. Your comfort zone expands, and all of a sudden you're where you might have been cautious and meek, you're confident and powerful. That's a big thing. It's a concept out in the mountains called false summit. Some of you may have experienced it. It's when you're going uphill because the mountains are so big, or there's trees and you can't see the top. You walk uphill and you start to think you're getting close to the top. So many times you come to what you thought was the top and you go, oh, there's another hurdle to climb, another hill. Sometimes there's multiple false summits. And I got to tell you, I think that is possibly the best analogy for life that I can think of. Does anybody have a totally challenge-free existence? You go through life, one challenge after another. You know, we've all just gone through this monstrous challenge. Well, being fit, I think learning lessons from the mountains gives you the opportunity to overcome these false summits that we hit all the time. In fact, they can be very extreme. This is more me. I'm just want to tell you a little bit of a story. I feel antsy unless I'm getting out of my comfort zone. In fact, on a regular basis, I almost have to go through this process of forcing myself into a crucible, making things as hard as I can for myself. in order to see what happens on the other side. So if you don't know what a crucible is, it's severe trial where different elements interact and you don't know what they are, they're unpredictable, but when you come out of it, something new emerges. And frankly, if you saw one of my webinars recently for Dan and Cody, I did use this principle saying that the pandemic was a crucible. We're all going through a crucible right now. Something else is going to emerge. I think what I mean here is a physical crucible. I do it all the time. And I'll just tell you about one of them. I had the opportunity to go to the South Pole a while back, and it was just 4 guys. We got dropped off on the ice about 200 miles from the nearest people, and we were climbing a mountain. One of our rest days, I decided that what I was going to do was walk off by myself. So I wandered up that ridge. You can see that ridge right in the center, up to the red X. And I sat there by myself. It was maybe 40 degrees below zero. There were only 3 other human beings within 100 miles, and they were about 5 miles away in a tent. And I just sat there, dangled my foot over the edge of this cliff, and kind of took in the sensations. Yeah, a mindfulness experience, but you start to think about, you know, if I fell right now, no one would ever know what happened to me and never find me. It would be a complete mystery. If I ran out of water, if something happened, I'd freeze to death for sure there. So I had to do that in order to get myself to the next level of confidence. And frankly, I think this particular experience, when I came back, I was a changed person. I left corporate world. I became an entrepreneur. I did not want to put up with the bureaucracy and the headaches of being in a big complex organization. I wanted to be a person who was responsible for the outcomes of my efforts. I wanted to go from point A to point B and back down with my own efforts. And that was kind of the result of this crucible. So I recommend it for you, but I recommend you start to get your clients to thinking about getting through situations like that, not necessarily going to the extremes that I did. Because frankly, there's something for everybody outdoors. Even a small walk through flat woods, just gorgeous. And over time, you become more confident. You go further uphill. Excuse me. My friend on the right there, Dave Clark, lives in Colorado. He started off walking in the woods. He's now 70, and he's climbing 14,000 foot peaks in Colorado and loving it. So you don't have to go to Antarctica, sit on a cliff. These kind of challenges are everywhere, and you can help your clients find them and coach them to that. So I'm going to end off with just a few little training tips, and then we'll do some Q&A if you have any. I get asked a lot when I do versions of this talk, how do I start? What's the technique? Well, I know you guys know this. It starts with walking. Walking is the most fundamental, basic, important exercise that we as humans can do. There's tons of books about it. I'm sure you've all read them. Walking is where it all starts. So that's how I advise people. You walk faster, put a pack on, walk with poles, and your walking skills increase until you're ready for hiking. It's really that simple. There's no mystery. Now, a little bit of extra fitness. Here's what I do. I do stairs. You know, it's when I'm in a hotel.
Road.
Pat, somebody needs to mute, please.
Thank you. So, but the thing about hiking is, this is where the gym comes in. You get that little extra bit of fitness from the gym, you enjoy yourself more and you're safer. So when you're training, you got to do as close to the real thing as possible. It's important to use weight-bearing exercise because not so much the strength. What's interesting about being outdoors is you need to have a certain amount of toughness and flexibility in your hips, knees, ankles, and feet. It's amazing how uncomfortable it can be if you haven't built that in. And you get to that, by walking. You got to have those really flexible and strong and springy ligaments and joints. Makes it so much more enjoyable. But I get to that. And, there's lots of ways of doing it. I train a lot in the gym too. But the core exercise for me always has been stairs. Up and down the stairs. And that's what I was talking about, down. So many people train just on a Stairmaster, they go uphill. It's the downhill that makes it really, gives you the complete workout. And then just a little bit, last bit of training tips. So this is one of my fun little exercises that most people don't know about. People always ask me, what's the first thing I should do? Actually, I always say just do more squats. That helps a lot too. Stairs again, down is important. I have rediscovered a few years ago sled pull. It's so good for hiking and so good for you in general. I'm sure you guys know the benefits of lunges and jump rope. The plyometric nature of that is also really good for hiking. But my secret, and I know a lot of people probably do box jumps, I do jump downs. It's kind of a weird thing. It sounds counterintuitive. It's not as explosive, which is good, as jumping up. But I will tell you, when you're outdoors, jump downs prepare you for the real world of keeping your balance and preventing you from falling on your head. Because jump downs are the deceleration muscles. It is, to me, so often overlooked. If you're going to train people for outdoors, I'm telling you, jump downs do miracles. Slowing your body down against gravity, it's a great thing. So I could go on forever about this. I really could. I love this topic. Let me just tell you one thing. I got a little saying. I made this saying up. I don't know if it's original or not, but you know, we spend a lot of time on social media, looking at what other people are doing. That's oftentimes, that's called the fear of missing out. You think you're not being as interesting as your friends. I say, forget all that fear of missing out and do the jobo, the joy of being outside. It will change your life. I think this picture here of my hiking friend, Sandy Sherman, she actually is a cancer survivor, took up hiking. This is her on the top of the tallest mountain in the Northwest. And what she says here is really remarkable. I've seen through the years, I've been lucky to see some of the things through the years. You will gain perspective, expand your thinking, and experience awe. That can change everything. So that's why I'm so excited about this. And I can't possibly tell you all the fun stories and stuff that are in my book, but that's where we're at. So that's what I got for you today, folks. Again, as I said, you were all going to get a copy of this in your goodie bag, but I can't get it to you now. So what I'm going to do for anyone at the summit, if you give me your email address, and it's right down, my website is www.getoutsideonline. If you go there, enter your email address, I will notify you when we go into pre-sale. And for 3 or 4 days, you'll be able to get the ebook for 99 cents. That's the best I can do for you as we're locked down. And then we can figure out how to get some hard copies out to people who need more of them. But feel free to please leave me your email address. Follow this book on social media. My website is going to have a lot more how to hike, how to train for hiking. It's going to be very robust in terms of all that. It's going to have chapters from the book. I hope you'll engage with me, and I hope you will figure out that your clients want to know that you know about this, and they want you to coach them not only to do it, but if you make yourself their advisor on how to be outside and be safer and fitter for outdoor activities, they'll come to you more often. They'll come to you, and it will be part of the equation. So there we are for the moment.
Martin, we've got a couple questions there. Can you see those?
I can't. Hold on a second.
Okay, someone wants to know if you have any suggestions for how to acclimate to high altitude.
Yeah, I do. You know, I was just at Mount Everest earlier this year. And so, yeah, I was at high altitude. You know, the way to acclimate for high altitude is you have to go to high altitude. Because no matter how fit you are, the process of acclimating is about your body's physiological reaction to having less oxygen. It stresses your body builds more red blood cells, those red blood cells carry more oxygen. So acclimatizing is about getting to altitude and spending some significant time there. It takes time. Everybody has to go through that process. I'm not sure what kind of altitude you're talking about, whether it's Colorado kind of altitude or really high, but usually about 5,000 or 6,000 feet above sea level as people start to feel it. If you're talking about going up to the top of a 14er in Colorado, it's good to usually spend a night or two at between 5,000 and 10,000 feet and give your body a chance to build red blood cells to make going high easier.
Okay. We have another question from Renee Taylor, who says, hello from Colorado.
Hey,
I'm assuming you've climbed a few of our 14ers here. What
I
are
have.
your
I spent a
summit
lot of
hikes?
time in Colorado. Yeah,
It's what's that?
I have spent a lot of time in Colorado. It's one of my
What are
favorites.
your favorite summit hikes?
Well, I've done Long's Peak a few times. I've done Pikes Peak. There's just so many 14ers. You know, I spent a lot of time rock climbing in Boulder as well. So not as many 14ers as I would have liked. And, you know, that's why I regret the fact that we're not in Denver right now, because we had a bunch of hikes planned. Yeah, it's what a great opportunities. There's so many, it's hard to pick one.
Okay. Marion wants to know, she says her only challenge is that hills and mountains are not everywhere. And I assume this takes weekly practice?
Well, you know, it's true that there aren't hills and mountains everywhere, but there are hikes everywhere. As I've been researching this to put it on the website, no matter what search engine you use, put in hikes near me, you will be shocked how close hikes are. Now, they aren't always steep, but you know, I was shocked just last year. I went for a magnificent hike up a 13,000-foot mountain near Las Vegas, 1 hour from the Las Vegas Strip. There's a whole bunch of snowy mountains in the middle of summer. So they're really not as far off as you think. And yeah, but there are some places that are flat, and that's where the Rails to Trails comes in. The Rails to Trails Conservancy has turned every former railroad track into a hiking path. Now, you know, they're not mountains, but they're hiking. And you put on a backpack, put on some ankle weights, and you can get a lot of the same effect.
Okay, super. Joanne used to live there for 30 years. Joanne, I went to high school and college there, so I wish we could have met in Denver as well. Anyone else have questions for Martin? We've got some time if you do.